All right, so the Indianapolis Colts officially have a couple days in pads out of the way during training camp. Of course, that's a big deal in the sense that that's the closest thing we've seen to real football up to this point, but also, I guess, kind of less talked about as a bit of significance is really starting now, starting this Monday, July 28th. Was the first really full week now that we're going to be looking at of an NFL grind. Keep in mind, the Colts started training camp on the 23rd, meaning that was Wednesday to Sunday, and was not in pads. But now you're seeing your first Monday to Sunday cycle, primarily in pads, and what is kind of unofficially, but I guess as a concept for me, really the start of the NFL season, right? Because now it's from here all the way to the Super Bowl for those of the teams that make it there. This is what it is. And, your group chat probably blowing up about the fantasy draft, right? Are you in? Are you out? What day do you want to do it? And then, of course, the Colts now just over a week away from a preseason game against the Ravens and just over a month away from the regular season opener against the Miami Dolphins. And right off the bat, let me just make an observation. I got to say, knock on wood, feels like a real lack of drama this year for the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm certainly not complaining about that. In fact, quite the opposite. I think it's a pleasant surprise. Like, generally, by now, at least so it feels, and of course we had Jim Irsay, and that was devastating, and we mourned that, but I'm talking about right in front of us today in terms of players, coaches, what is going to be the 53-man roster, anything that directly affects the on-the-field operation that is the Colts preparing to play against another NFL football team right now. I mean, really not all that much to be down about. Generally, it feels like we've had a major injury, a holdout, something like that. But as of right now, kind of all hunky-dory over here for the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, we got Bernard Raymond, franchise left tackle, extended, big money. He'll be over there at Elmo's Steakhouse, I believe is what I've heard is the big steakhouse over there in Indy. And yeah, with all of that, it means with no bad news, we can focus on the good news. And you'll be pleased to hear, as I've been up to this point, we have a whole bunch of good news coming out of camp right now. Of course, a little bad news, some injuries on day 2 in full pads after making it through day 1 healthy. Juju Brent's hamstring. What else is new? Doesn't seem too serious. We'll see how that progresses. Jalen Jones also, the other corner, kind of fighting for that outside spot with rookie Justin Wally. He got a hamstring as well. He has been the epitome of health, and he needed help getting off the field. He was carted off the field. Seems like he avoided anything that was kind of season long, but right now we're kind of lacking information. Presumably we'll get that information tomorrow, Thursday, July 31st, as the Colts sort of prepare for that night practice, and we'll see how severe that is for Jalen Jones. No word yet there. David Long, another corner, right? 3 corners went down on day 2 with injuries, and then on the offensive side of the ball, Michael Pittman Jr. with the groin injury, and then Salvon Ahmed at running back, who I thought really had a chance to carve a role on this team, albeit a slim one. Kind of a tough break for him. He's kind of a guy that had started some games in this league. I thought was kind of being overlooked in the Colts running back room, but as it seems right now, as we'll get into, the running back room seemingly has taken shape in terms of we know who's going to be on the roster. But really the best news we've gotten out of all of the news for the Indianapolis Colts is the news that we wanted to get, which is it seems like the offense is starting to catch up to speed a little bit with the defense. Really, the first couple days in pads, the first day particularly, the offense started to step up from where we were kind of at prior, where the defense had been much of the story, not only in training camp up to this point, but really when you think about what the Colts did this offseason, defense was where they focused, and bringing in smooth Lou Anarmuo, Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, right? These were all big additions on that side of the ball, and on the offensive side of the ball, not that much. But now that really makes, now as I record this, I believe 2 of the last 3 days, 3 of the last 4 days, point being, we're seeing kind of a trend of the offense starting to get some of their hits in on the defense, particularly Anthony Richardson, who continues to show real signs of growth, at least from my view, which is really our view as people who are not boots on the ground at training camp, the outside looking in, showing real signs of growth, right? All reports indicate that he seems to at least be completing the layups more often. To what degree that is actually consistent play to play to play versus what we're seeing and what we're not seeing, I don't know. But you do kind of look at these guys, the Noah Comptons of the world and the James Boyds, all these guys that kind of go through, hey, he completed this many passes, and here were what those completions look like, and here were what the incompletions look like. Looks like Richardson right now completing those layups a bit more often. We see him out there 30 minutes early, an hour early before practice, going through those mental reps, right? Which a mental rep for him, seemingly, from what I'm looking at, is him looking at the play sheet on his arm, going through the motion of the snap, the play action, envisioning where his receivers are lined up, and kind of trying to get an idea of, okay, if this guy's covered, I go here, this guy's covered, I go there, and going through the 1, 2, 3, and potentially even fourth guy on his progression. No incompletions on the first day of training camp for what that's worth. And you take all of that, combine it with the shape he showed up to training camp in. You really have a recipe for optimism here, not just really with Anthony Richardson alone, but the offense. And then ultimately at that point, the team, because make no mistake, the Colts right now are a quarterback away from being the runaway favorite in the AFC South. If you ask me, I think they easily have the best roster. I don't need to get into the breakdown, but I'll put it like this. If you were to take this current version, what we know of Anthony Richardson right now, and you were to put him on the Texans, and then you were to take CJ Stroud, what we know him to be, and put him on the Colts, would the Texans, even in a massive leap out of Anthony Richardson, have any chance to take the division from the Indianapolis Colts in that scenario? No. The answer is an easy no. But on the contraire, the Colts, with the big step out of Anthony Richardson, are absolutely in position to take the AFC South. So you got to like that. And, all this good stuff out of Anthony Richardson does bring me back to when we first got Lou Anarmuo. And one of the first things that I discussed on the show when they got him, and keep in mind, Smooth Lou is a guy, we all know the profile at this point, right? The mad scientist, all the buzz terms that we've heard. But a coach like him, who's going to come in and practice, he's going to change it up. He's not going to get complacent. You're not going to keep seeing the same look out of him. He's going to make you adjust as an offense. The role that I thought he could play in terms of the development and evolution of not only Anthony Richardson, but the Colts offense as a whole from kind of a play calling perspective, right? It seems to be, at least as of right now, this is continuously evolving. We're very early in the process. Seems to be sort of paying dividends. Again, only a couple days in pads, but we're going to see if this keeps up. Of course, the guys behind center not at risk of getting hit, but being in full pads is a very big deal. Jim Bob Cooter I appreciated him mentioning the difference between throwing a football in pads, in your shoulder pads, versus without them. That's a big deal. Not a lot of people talk about that. And then, of course, outside of the quarterbacks getting hit, full pads kind of means full speed. It's the closest thing to full speed that you're going to get outside of playing an actual game. So, that's why the quarterback battle ultimately is nowhere near decided for the Indianapolis Colts up to this point. But nonetheless, again, you just got to feel good. And another optimistic side note for Anthony Richardson while we're sitting here, because of course, the injuries is kind of the elephant in the room. We talk about the performance and we talk about full pads on. We also talk about the idea of this guy not getting hit. And we really, if we're to be honest, and I'm not saying this to be negative, I'm just giving you my honest thoughts. Anthony Richardson could come out and be an MVP for 14 consecutive weeks for the Indianapolis Colts. Going into week 15, I'm likely going to be uneasy about his health. Like, that's just what the experience has been up to this point. And that's kind of, I guess, a product of my PTSD with Anthony Richardson and kind of with the Colts as a whole for a while now, right? Justified or not, that is what it is. But I suppose, again, the reason I even bring that up, you think about guys, he would not be the first guy to kind of start his career injured and then sort of work his way into becoming a durable player. Frank Gore at running back, I know Richardson's a quarterback, but stick with me. He does run the ball a lot. The inconvenient truth himself, Frank Gore, was a guy who, if you look early in his career, he had a tough time staying on the field for the 49ers. And not only did he stay on the field after that, he actually turned into the epitome of durability. Like, he became a beacon of what it looks like to have longevity at that position. Or perhaps even a better example, what about a Matt Stafford? Go take a look at his first 2 seasons in the league and what that looked like and how much playing time he got. He's another guy who went from missing a whole bunch of time to injuries, including a shoulder injury. And now he basically never misses time to injury. Of course, now he's a little bit older, but he is a durable player for really the length of his career. So I don't know if that's a callus that guys grow to the pain, or just kind of they get a better understanding of their body and what they can play through, what they can't play through. But my point in bringing all that up is a little bit of optimism for Anthony Richardson here, right? What a fly this is right here. A fly, right? Why not? Justin, you're recording an episode. Let me bother you now, the fly says. Like, dude, I'll talk to you later. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, let's not get upset about the idea of an Anthony Richardson injury now, okay? If and when that happens, we'll have plenty of time to be upset then. For now, let's just kind of enjoy the process of what it is that we're seeing here, which ultimately seems like an Anthony Richardson who, even if he's not the best version of himself yet, and we don't know what it's going to look like out there on the field, ultimately it seems right now like you have a better guy than you had last year. And that's a pretty good start because the Colts were still right around 500 in a year where it felt like just about everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But with all the quarterback talk out of the way, we do have a whole lot of other things to talk about. I've been literally keeping up with everything, like all the updates, even if I haven't been on the episodes as much, because quite frankly, I'm not there in the weeds. I am, Twitter, X, whatever it is that you want to call it. By the way, shout out to everyone that's at Graham Park every day. The Noah Comptons, the James Boyes, the Kevin Bowens, Ken Sterling, Jake Arthur, Matt Taylor, right? Nate Atkins, Joel Erickson. I could keep playing the name game, but those guys are so incredibly valuable to the community and so important to people like me and you who are trying to get a feel for the way this team is running right now. And I could not have this show from all the way across the country in Long Island, New York, without their coverage. And side note, by the way, one of the guys I just mentioned going to be a guest on the show coming here later in the week. You go ahead, feel free to drop a comment and take a guess as to who that might be. We'll get a little insight for you from Boots on the Ground. So keep a lookout for that. But back to what it is, a whole lot to talk about. I want to give my thoughts on all of it. One, the cornerback battle really heating up right now for the Indianapolis Colts, despite the injuries to Jalen Jones and Juju Brents. Hearing great things about all of those guys right now. Justin Wally has kind of been like the, I don't know, the shiny new toy for Colts fans, right? But Jalen Jones, Juju Brents have both been killing it in training camp as well right now. Having that many corners play well for the Colts, not typical in recent seasons. Of course, we know Charvarius Ward in the addition he is, and he has been elite at Colts camp by every stretch of the word, by every way you could define that word. Charvarius Ward has been it. But again, Justin Wally, Jalen Jones, and Juju Brents fighting for that outside corner spot across from him. And all of them seemingly doing very, very well at the moment. So you have to feel pretty good about that. We're going to talk about it. Also, starting to get some clarity for the Indianapolis Colts in terms of the depth pieces on offense. Anthony Gould, a bit of a surprise in terms of how involved he has been up to this point. Tyler Goodson, running back, carving out a strong special teams role for this team. And of course, we know he's been involved in the offense in previous years. DJ Giddens, rookie fifth-round running back, the human glitch, has been heavily involved and seemingly running with the twos a lot of the time for the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to talk about the implications of all of that. And then we heard from Braden Smith, of course. He was asked a whole bunch about last season's absence from the team, where his head is at, all that stuff. He seems to be looking healthy to me. Certainly looks like he's in real solid shape, particularly those guys up front. These guys are big guys. A lot of people think linemen are fat, but they're not. These guys are muscle, and they pack a little extra weight because they have to. He said he's feeling the best he's felt in a very long time and is in a spectacular place, quote, spectacular place, both physically and mentally. Great news for the Colts, of course, if they can count on him being out there and healthy and available for this team, there really should be no worries about this offensive line if you're a Colts fan, and really if you're the Colts as a whole, at least relative to some of the other things that we may have to be worried about as Colts fans. So we're going to dive into all those topics and possibly more. But before we do, you know what it is? Finally, I got to introduce myself. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. As always, I ask anyone watching and enjoying the show, go ahead, shoot a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We're on our way to 4,000 subscribers over here on the YouTube channel. We just broke the 3,500 threshold. So if you keep coming back and enjoying the show, or perhaps it's your first day here and you're like, you know what? Not too bad. I mean, you're still listening after all. If you made it this far, you can't hate it that much. Maybe today's the day you hit subscribe, never miss another episode again. But of course, no pressure. I'll be doing this here for a very, very long time. I'll be sitting on this chair or a chair like this. I doubt it lasts that long. And I'll be like, hey, remember when Anthony Richardson broke out in his third year and won comeback player of the year? That's going to be me in the year 2070 or something. I don't know how the math works out. Neither here nor there. Audio listeners, leave a five-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying the show, but most importantly, be civil in the comment section. You don't know what the person on the other end of the keyboard is going through today. The goal over here is always to elevate the level of discussion about the Indianapolis Colts, create a more rational, less emotional, more objective Colts fan, one discussion at a time. All Colts, nothing but the Colts. That's what we do over here. But now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, let's get back to business. And I really want to start with the secondary and that outside corner group for the Indianapolis Colts, because again, as I said, just a lot of talk about Justin Wally and really kind of rooted in the fact, right? It was a big surprise in OTAs this year when Justin Wally, who's a rookie third rounder that a lot of experts, right, quote unquote experts, thought the Colts reached on. It was quite a bit of a surprise in OTAs to see him starting on the outside. And I had kind of at that moment credited it to the fact that, you just want to get the rookie's feet wet and try him out at different positions. Chris Ballard spoke to his versatility and what he could bring both inside and outside when they drafted him. So I said, okay, they're just kind of trying him out in spots. But then sure enough, he came into training camp and was starting on the outside on the first day. And a lot of people kind of chalked it up to him being a scheme fit because of his man coverage ability and Lou Anarmuo's scheme. And there's a clip, if you have not seen it, of Justin Wally. He was all over Josh Downs in one-on-ones. And let me tell you something right now. If you are, I mean, there are very few places, there's almost nowhere you'd want to be less than caught in one-on-one coverage against Josh Downs. I mean, maybe wearing a winter jacket in the depths of hell. Like that is maybe one place that is less desirable than being caught in a one-on-one with Josh Downs. But I mean, Josh Downs is the type of guy that is going to create separation, and he's going to make you look a little silly from time to time. I mean, Henning Kenny Moore was fun to watch last year at training camp, but neither here nor there. When people talk about how a guy performs in man coverage, a lot of the times they're talking about speed, and that's totally fair, but that is not at all what's required. And that is really on full display when talking about how well guys like Jalen Jones and Juju Brents are performing as well. These are both big, strong, physical, lengthy corners. These are guys that want to get up on you at the line of scrimmage and are really from a physical, from their a perspective of their physical tools, kind of built in a lab to cover guys in press coverage. So whatever they lack in speed, they make up with kind of affecting a guy's release off the line and their length. Right? So, okay, you may be a step behind, but you have long arms. You're 6'2", you're 6'3", the whole bit. That kind of makes up for that step behind you might be. And the Colts secondary right now is really one of these under the radar stories in the NFL, because for Justin Wally to be starting on the outside over a guy like Jalen Jones, number one, Juju Brents, I understand because he hasn't really been healthy, although his production when he's on the field has never been in question. Jalen Jones is a guy who started, 27, 28 games for the Colts since he was a rookie, and has really given them some good work and has played in some important games for the team. I mean, Justin Wally starting on the outside is not an indictment against Jalen Jones. It just shows how highly they think of Justin Wally. He has to be showing them something very, very special. And at that point, you're looking and saying, well, okay, while everyone on the outside talks about the quarterback battle for the Indianapolis Colts, this secondary flying right under the radar as one of, I think, could end up being one of the big stories in the NFL, the way this secondary bounces back after being 29th, 30th last year against the pass. I mean, you have a lot of talent. I mean, let me just pull up the depth chart real quick. You look at this damn thing. Oh, Lord, where's the depth chart? Justin, don't screw up now. Obviously, you have Charvarius Ward. You have everyone we're talking about. You have Ward. You have Juju Brents. You have Jalen Jones. You have Justin Wally, right? Samuel Womack is a guy that came in last year for the Colts and did pretty decent stuff. Those are five guys right off the bat, right? Corey Ballantyne is a guy. This is not a groundbreaking guy by any means that they ended up getting from the Packers, but at the same time, you do look and say, well, okay, you know, he is a good sixth guy at corner, is he not? I mean, the Colts secondary, they got dogs out there, and anyone who says otherwise is, I don't know, Hayton has PTSD, but injuries aside, man, you got to be happy about the corner room. And then again, as a cherry on top of all of it, when you have that talent on the defensive side of the ball, it can pay dividends for the offense who's playing against them every single day, right? We always hear the saying, iron sharpens iron. Well, this has to be helping the quarterback room for sure. It has to be helping the wide receivers and really the operation on offense as a whole. So this is something that on the surface, the Colts, you say, okay, they're just trying to improve the defense. But when you think about it in the more practical sense, the moves that they made on defense this offseason have a chance to really pay dividends on the offensive side of the ball as well. We're going to see if that continues. Now, let's talk about the offensive side of the ball a little bit, and let's talk about the depth at wide receiver and running back. Anthony Gould, a guy making a lot of noise right now at training camp, and that's good stuff. We like to see that. I mean, fifth-round pick last year, a guy that's just a speedster, a return man in terms of kind of his size, sort of what you would think of to be a slot receiver. And of course, now him kind of working with Josh Downs being a specialist. Anthony Gould is a guy they're drawing stuff up for, from what I understand. And that's kind of a big deal because you do look at the wide receiver room and you say, okay, obviously you know the fixtures in the room, which are Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, right, as he comes into his own. But then you were looking at that kind of fifth and potentially sixth corner spot, wide receiver spot, and saying, okay, you have Gould, Doolin, and DJ Montgomery. DJ Montgomery, a guy who I always think looks good in training camp. Like, I think he produces. I think he can play, but ultimately not a special teams guy, and that's what you're looking for out of your fifth and sixth. Last year, Anthony Gould was a guy that was kind of depending on the week he was on the active roster versus not on the active roster. This year, it seems like, hey, this is going to be a guy. I mean, the Colts look like right now they're going to roster 6 receivers because Lord knows Ashton Doolin's not going to be cut because you know how much they like him as a special teams or and a depth piece at wide receiver. So it looks like, okay, wide receiver, you can essentially lock in 6 guys: Pittman, Pierce, Downs, Mitchell, Doolin, and Anthony Gould. They will all be, I think, on the active roster every single week, not 5 active most of the time and then a 6th active sometimes. I think every week you're going to have those guys active, particularly when you look at the tight end room and say there's a little bit less there than there was in the past couple years. Running back now, Tyler Goodson. Apparently, he's in a spot right now where they're viewing him as a starting gunner in the punt team. They're viewing him as really their primary return man behind that of an Anthony Gould. And you say, okay, I was kind of looking and saying, hey, you bring in Sylvan Ahmed, who's a guy that sort of is a scat back in this league, much like a Tyler Goodson. He's started some games in the NFL. He's had a couple of real good games starting in the NFL for the Miami Dolphins. And I thought, okay, think about all the Colts brought in at running back. You think last year, obviously Jonathan Taylor is who he is, and we know what he brings to the table. But behind him, you had Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson. The Colts went out and got 3 running backs, right? Khalil Herbert, DJ Giddens, and Sylvan Ahmed. That would have kind of signaled to the fact that, hey, they're looking to shake something up in here. But right now, with the Sylvan Ahmed injury and now learning about Tyler Goodson and the role he's going to have on special teams, the running back room seems set too. It looks like it's going to be Taylor, Herbert, Giddens, Goodson. Looks like you could bank that to be guys that make the roster, barring something unforeseen or injuries. Seems like wide receiver and running back right now, very early in the training camp, we could kind of deduce what the final roster is going to be there. Now, let's switch on over to Braden Smith before we wrap this thing up. Of course, as I said at the top of the show, he is out there looking very, very healthy. That is great news for the Indianapolis Colts. You look at the Colts offensive line right now. Bernard Raymond, Big Q as the core. We know Gonsalves, right out of Long Island, grew up 20 minutes from me, is going to be a guy that I support through and through, but also a guy that they clearly trust. Tony Sperano is not a guy that lacks knowledge on the offensive line. Of course, all these guys know what they're talking about, but he has a pedigree. Gonsalves, for them to move him inside, keep in mind they talked about his versatility when they drafted him. I kind of just trust the move. And then Tanner Bortolini, or Tortellini as I like to call him, did well last year in relief of Ryan Kelly. So you kind of have your center and your right guard, sure, somewhat of an unknown per se, but at the same time, you sort of put them inside of a core that has a lot of continuity and has gotten the job done at a relatively high level, a very high level for the majority of time that they've kind of been the guys the Colts have trotted out there up front. You got guys behind Tortellini and behind Matt Gonsalves and Wesley French and Danny Pinter and Dalton Tucker, guys who have gotten a lot of reps in the league. The Colts offensive line, make no mistake, and I've been saying this from the start when we lost Ryan Kelly and lost Will Fries, they are going to be just fine, assuming health. And I even think you could afford a couple injuries on the inside because I think Bortolini and Gonsalves, even if right now they're your best options, I do think the guys I just mentioned would fill in for them just fine if they had to within the context of the entire unit. So that's where the Colts are at right now, midweek. Practices are going to pick back up. And again, as I said at the top of the show, we're in that time now where the real grind of the NFL season starts, right? Monday through Sunday, full pads. This is about the time injuries are going to start popping up. But as of right now, for the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, some of the guys who have been injured in the past, right? Braden Smith, Anthony Richardson, Jelani Woods, all still alive and kicking out there in training camp. And you love to see that. I will be back with an episode. You'll see me Friday morning with a guest. But until next time, my name is Justin. This right here is the Ryan the Bench Colts podcast. And as always, go Colts.